On this from Michael Danby. He's a Labor MP, a Jewish member of Parliament. He's in fact in Israel at the moment and is with us on the line. Michael Danby, thank you for your time. I mentioned earlier we've seen real anger from Benjamin Netanyahu and others in Israel. What's your take on this deal?
Well, it will depend on verification and what happens at the end of these agreements after 8 years. That does seem surprising that the P5 have agreed to allow Iran to acquire ballistic missiles after 8 years. It doesn't seem to be much of a deal as far as I'm concerned. I've been speaking to my friends in the Israeli Labor Party, and they, together with other people in the opposition, like Mr. Yair Lapid, the sort of Israeli George Clooney kind of political figure here, both are opposed to this deal simply on the basis of experience with the Iranians. So it depends whether this is going to turn out, David, to be a North Korea kind of deal where the party Iran breaks it, or whether it's a Soviet Union kind of deal where it actually helps verification. Whatever it is, the Iranian leader Ayatollah Khamenei is right. This is not a deal about anything except Iran's nuclear aspirations. It doesn't cover Iran's regional policy, which is very aggressive in Iraq, Lebanon, Syria and now Yemen, and nor does it cover, as Greg Sheridan said, their sponsorship of Hezbollah, as he said, classified by the Australian Parliament as a terrorist organisation. Both those balancing policies are not changed at all by this, and we've bet a lot on the change in the kind of leadership in Iran, over the next 8 to 10 years. Let's hope they change. Let's hope the Germans, the British, the French and the Americans are right.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think this is in part being driven at all by Iran cooperating in the fight against ISIS in Iraq? Certainly there's no formal cooperation going on, but the Americans, the Australians, everyone else seem pretty happy to have Iran involved in the fight. Do you think this is part of it?
It is, but that's a mistake in itself. If anything is going to exacerbate Daesh, the ISIS people, the terrorists, the people that are attracting foreign fighters all over the world, it's putting Shia or Iranian militias in western Iraq and in Syria, where the Sunni Arab minority or majority in some places are the local population. This is like shoving a hot poker into a bee's nest. I think that's a totally short-term mistaken policy that's going to lead only to further disasters. But whatever the merits of this nuclear deal, and we all want peace, and I hope that this hope is over-experience is justified. It's not going to ease the situation on the ground as far as the millennial fight between the Sunnis and the Shias, and by putting more Shias into places where Sunni people live, you're only going to make things worse. The one thing I'd say about this agreement, David, is that the Iranians, remember, come from the Persian civilization. They are very sophisticated, very civilized people. Their leadership thinks long term, and in the meantime, they get massive billions of dollars freed up. They get their oil industry having embargoes taken off it, and they are going to wait at best, if they don't cheat, as Greg Sheridan suggests they will, 8 to 10 years, then they'll have an international nuclear program approved by the world, including the ability to strike out for ballistic missiles and nuclear weapons. So maybe they're playing the long game. Certainly, they've changed this negotiations from an arrangement where we were going to stop Iranian nuclear program to one where we're at best trying to manage it.
Just a quick one before I let you go. Slightly different matter. End of next week, we've got the Labor Party conference. There's talk about a motion to recognise Palestine. What's your message to your Labor Party colleagues on that?
Well, Australia's always supported a two-state solution. That's what Dr. Everett voted for when we supported partition of Palestine in 1948. I don't think anyone's phased about that. I think unilateral steps to support one side or the other is not the way to go. The decision will be made between the parties, and I think that's the kind of line, the reasonable line that the Labor Party's had up until now, and we should stick to that.
Michael Danby, Labor MP, joining us from Israel this afternoon. Thank you very much for that. We'll have to leave it there. Now, back home.
Thanks, David.